Hi, good afternoon, everybody. We're just letting folks in from the waiting room. We'll give that a couple of seconds so we can get everybody in here. Good afternoon and welcome. All right, I think we've got everybody on. We'll go ahead and kick off this official meeting. So we were supposed to do this in the third quarter. This is officially our third quarter for this calendar year AEL Advisory Committee meeting. We were not able to have it last month, so we had to reschedule it for this month. So I appreciate everybody's patience and allowing us to get this rescheduled. And thanks so much for joining us. We've got a really great agenda for you today. And as always, a good discussion from our advisory committee members. So I'm looking forward to that. Next slide. Real quick, I just want to go over today's agenda. For those of you that are joining us, we'll have a welcome from me. This is it, if you don't know, and a couple of opening remarks, and then we'll follow that up. I'll give a little bit of a Texas Workforce Commission adult education and literacy update, just for some things that are happening across the state in adult education right now, and give the committee members and those of you joining us an update on kind of what's happening. And then we will kick off. I'll turn things over to Steve, and he's going to kick off our committee discussion for today, which is going to be focusing on the collaboration among adult and family literacy providers and how we do what we do to meet the needs of a diverse community across Texas. So that's going to be sort of the key agenda item for today. Next slide. Before we get too far into the business meeting, I wanted to allow just some opening remarks and the ability for some special guests that are joining us today to say a few words. I know the commissioners couldn't be with us today, but I think we've got some representation here. And so I'm going to turn it over to Brent Williams with Commissioner Julian Alvarez's office to see if he has anything that he'd like to say. Brent, are you out there? I think I saw you in the waiting room. But I could be wrong. Let me see if Brent is on. Brent, are you out there? If you are, I can't hear you. Okay, we'll come back. Brent, we can't hear you. I don't know if your audio, can anybody else hear him, or is it just me that can't hear him?
I cannot hear him.
Okay, Brent, we cannot hear you. If you want to try to rejoin, let us know when you're back on, and I'm happy to give you some space and time there. We also have Brian Owens joining us today. He's the Chief of Staff for Commissioner Aaron Dimerson's office. Brian, are you out there?
I am.
Hey, good afternoon.
All right. Thanks everyone. Commissioner Dimerson, thanks you for your service and your dedication to the Advisory Council. And he's actually, he represents employers, but he's actually in San Antonio today at the Texas Economic Development Council meeting. And so he wanted for me to just mention a few things and also, like I said, thank you for your volunteer and dedication. So recently he's launched the Texas Interns Unite initiative, and we've had several events around the state really promoting work-based learning and site-based training and internships. We had a press conference at Google back in June, and then we had a virtual summit where we had a career influencer. I think that's what you call them now, but career influencer on, and we had like 300 students from all across the state on the virtual call. It was really a great success. We had a few other speakers, but she was our main keynote, Emily Meithner, and she was able to give the students a lot of career advice. And then we had we recognized National Intern Day at the Capitol on July 28th. We had a lot of different speakers engaged and really promoting internships and work-based learning. And then We had a rally in the Valley on September 21st in Brownsville. We had about 300 students from the local schools come and talk to and participate. There was interactive activities for them to do. And I believe we also had a few college students in the audience, and adult students. So all were welcome to attend. And so we had a great conference there. And then, of course, we had a big we partnered with Y Texas in Dallas on September 30th. They had a big career conference there, internships, and were talked about, and really career pathways. And Texas, the coordinating board presented Texas Works. And so we've been real busy the last few months of really promoting work-based learning. And so we thank you for your support. If there's anything that we can do for you, just let us know. Commissioner is always available to meet with you. So just thank you, and let us know how we can help. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Brian. I know Commissioner's so busy. And when he started talking about internships, of course, I'm just like, ooh, how can adult ed do that? We have so many students that we have that are coming out and earning credentials of value that really to support, some initiatives and industries that are happening here with employers in Texas. And I'm always just like, that would be such an amazing opportunity for someone to do some work-based learning that may be coming into a brand new field that they don't know a whole lot about. So I'll have to talk about that and circle back, but it's definitely something for our advisory committee members to think about as well. So thanks so much for just kind of bringing that up and bringing that to light. Maybe we'll discuss it further in a future meeting.
Definitely. We would love to get together with you and make some plans. I know from an employer perspective, they're always searching for talent pools in this labor market. So certainly look forward to the conversation.
Awesome. So I'm going to circle back and see if Brent, I know he was trying to come back in. Brent, are you out there and can you hear us? We had a couple of our members that were having some issues getting in today too. I can see I can see that you're unmuted, Brent, but we cannot hear you. At least I can't. Well, Brent, I tell you what, if you'll put into the chat for everyone, we'd love to kind of hear what you would like to say. And if you do find that your mic is working later on, just let me know. I'm happy to give you some space so that you can bring forward remarks for Commissioner Alvarez. And thanks so much for joining us, you guys. We will continue on in the agenda. So next slide, Jennifer. A couple of TWC updates from me. We've got one really big one, and I'm really happy that I get to announce this today. So yesterday, one day ago, our commission approved the appointment of Leslie Cantu. She's the Assistant Vice President of Administration there for Toyota Tsu out of San Antonio to be our next and our newest advisory committee member. I think she was able to join us today. A little bit about Leslie, and then Leslie, I'm going to turn it over to you just to kind of say hello and welcome so you can be thinking about what you may want to say. When I approached Leslie, I actually got to kind of see her in action at the GRACE conference this year. And the GRACE conference was really focused on second chance employers and how do we really support employers in Texas that are willing and want to hire and train and incorporate formerly incarcerated and justice involved individuals. And so I saw her speak there at a panel. I was super impressed. I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'd really like for you to come and think about joining adult education and everything that we're doing here. And at the time I didn't know this, but she's actually the board chair there for Workforce Solutions Alamo, and comes with a great knowledge and experience in workforce development and education. So she serves on so many committees. She's a busy lady, I know. So Leslie, are you out there? And hopefully your mic's working and it's not something with our Zoom that's happening today.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, we can. So hello, Leslie, and welcome. I'm glad you were able to join us today. I gave the committee members a brief kind of, hey, this is going on and we're going to bring this forward to the commission for vote yesterday. Everything went well and here you are. So if you want to introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
Sure, I'm excited to be here. My name is Leslie Cantu. As shared in the introduction, I work for Toyotetsu Texas. We are an on-site supplier for Toyota in San Antonio. I've been in the manufacturing industry a little over 15 years. Prior to that, I actually started off my career in workforce development, working for one of the one-stop contractors in the Alamo region. As mentioned, also, I do a lot of work with justice-involved individuals and creating a second chance hiring program in San Antonio that's grown quite a bit from just my company. Now we have 7 other manufacturers in our region that are working together alongside Workforce Solutions Alamo and other other partners in our region to serve that population. And we have other exciting innovative pipeline development programs too that I'd be excited to share that information with you kind of as we have an opportunity in our meetings moving forward. But I'm excited. I hope I have a lot to bring to the committee from my workforce development background and industry experience. And so I'm really excited to be a part of this group and look forward to contributing.
Well, we are very lucky to have you, Leslie, and thank you so much for joining today. It's kind of, hey, you were appointed yesterday and here we go. It's the first opportunity. So there's no rest for the weary around here. But I look forward to Leslie's appointment. Next slide. And so now with Leslie's appointment by the commissioners yesterday, we now have 5 members in total on our committee right now. And for those of you that are joining from the public, just a little background, we are required to have at least 1 representative from the board and 1 representative from the business community. So Leslie is filling that slot for our business rep. And we appreciate her being a part of the discussions here. And then Janine Maldonado with Workforce Solutions Tarrant County is fulfilling our board slot. So we will continue to look for new members and other members. We can have up to a total of 9. But you can see here on the table, we do have some, we kind of try to stagger them out a little bit so we don't have a mass exodus. But Leslie will be with us for a 2-year term that's set to expire in October of 2024. So lots of great discussions, and we'll be sure to put all her good experience to work over the next 2 years. So thanks so much, Leslie, for joining us. Next slide. I wanted to take a little bit of opportunity. We're at a time in our year, even though from a calendar year perspective, we're kicking off the 4th quarter. In the program year perspective, for all of our adult education literacy providers across the state, we are kicking off quarter 2. So our program years run from July 1st to June 30th, and that's kind of the program year timeline. The thing about when we're talking about adult ed and I think the outcomes for our program, we've got all kinds of reports, right, that we have to owe to everybody. So we've got reports that we owe to our federal government, Department of Ed, specifically the Department of Office of Career and Technical Adult Education. We call them OCTAE. And then we have reports that are, owed to the state legislature, the LAR, the LBB, we've got all kinds. So I wanted to kind of introduce and tell you guys where we are in terms of where things ended up last year. So these numbers and things I'm going to be going over today are kind of a snapshot of some enrollment targets and also just some specific services that we did for last program year, which would have been July 1st of 2021 through June of 2022. So in terms of participants served, a little over 60,000 individuals across Texas throughout our provider system. IET services, and for those of you that are new, IET stands for something called Integrated Education and Training Services. And what it's really designed to do is really open the door for individuals that thought college wasn't an option for them. These can be individuals that maybe lack their high school diploma or an equivalent, or maybe they haven't been to college or had education in their life for a while. And so, you know, they're below where they should be to really be successful in a college level course. So what we do is we kind of combine adult education and literacy. So they're getting those literacy and numeracy skills that they need to be successful in those college courses. And we do that simultaneously for the students so that, you know, the end goal is that they get that credential of value to the employer and, you know, get a job. Or decide to further, you know, stack those credentials with something else, but no longer really need adult ed because we've gotten them the literacy and numeracy study skills and workforce preparation skills and all of the digital literacy skills and all of those things that they need to be successful for that next step. So we served a little over 7,000 of those individuals across Texas last year. We also have a specific category that we do and a program that we have across the state. We refer to it as intensive services. And these are services that could be workplace literacy. So we're working directly with employers to fulfill a need at the employer level. It's also could be for our internationally trained professionals. So these are English language learners. They come here, they have degrees and credentials from other countries, but they don't speak the language. So they have difficulty getting back into those industries here in the US. So we help to kind of support them in a pathway and learning more about the labor market here in Texas. What does that really mean? Getting their credentials transcribed can be part of that. Not necessarily everyone needs that, but it can be part of that process as well. And then the last service that falls under that intensive is our transition to reentry and post-release services, where we're really focused on working with individuals who are coming out of incarceration and are within that sort of 3 years post-release, just to help them get the educational services that they need and sort of help to navigate some of the things that are there in the communities to support them, you know, being successful post-release. And then one thing I did want to bring up, because we've been working on this for several years here in Texas, is increasing the number of students and the percent of students that we have that are in distance learning or distance education courses. This is something we launched over 5 years ago. We've been putting a lot of state effort, not just in administrative time, but also getting the commission and really having the commission approve some statewide initiatives for us. And the reason for that really is that it allows the student some flexibility to get additional seat time, additional instruction time. And we all know that the more instruction that they get, the better the outcomes are for those students. So we have lots of data to support that a hybrid learning option for students is really kind of a good indicator of success for those students. So we've went from somewhere below 20% of the students that we serve in the state that were accessing these additional activities to more than 40% in the state that are accessing those. And that's in large part due to our local providers being mentors, getting on board, learning more about how to support the students in that way. And so through sort of all these collaborative efforts, we've been able to improve those numbers year after year after year. Next slide. So for career pathway enrollment, when we talk about career pathway enrollment, what we're really talking about specifically is two categories that I just kind of spoke about. The first one is our IET. So those are going to be students that are kind of co-enrolled in adult ed and workforce training through a college or a workforce training provider. It's also going to include all the students that are enrolled and participating in those intensive services. So for career pathway enrollment across Texas, you can kind of see some numbers here in terms of what that total looks like, what type of these specialized services and focus that we're putting on students across the state. Some of you may remember that in the previous strategic plan, we had a big milestone in there, which was we wanted 20,000 individuals by 2020 to be a part of this career pathway enrollment. And we not only met, but exceeded that mark 2 years early. So here we are 2 years later, and that 20,000 that we were hoping to meet, we've almost doubled it. Just within 2 years. So I'm really proud of all the work that our AEL providers are doing out there in the local level. And I think it speaks to just how we're trying to support our WIOA combined state plan with all of our partners across the state, really kind of focusing on these services. Next slide. The last thing I wanted to give an update to the members on are some of the statewide initiatives. I brought this up, I think, previously, earlier in the year, right after the commission first approved the funding for these. And now here we are. So the RFAs have been done. We've got the grants in place. So I wanted to just kind of circle back and give an update on some of these. So we have our curriculum for construction trades. So this is specific for our IET that I was talking about. That was a $500,000 initiative that was approved by the commission. That amendment's been in place. We're working on that curriculum, and the modules are looking really good. Once we get all of those modules completed, we will share those with not only our AEL providers throughout the state, but also any of our collaborative entities that we have out there that may benefit from the use of those modules in terms of instruction. Our employer engagement initiative, the commission approved $1.2 million to help to support workplace literacy, or even IETs with employers. So if an employer has a need to really support more individuals, incumbent workers that need credentials, this could be an opportunity for them. We put out an RFA for this, and we ended up getting 4 grants that we awarded from that RFA. So those are in process, and I'll keep giving you guys updates as we get more, as those metrics just start to come online. I'll be sharing some of the performance from these projects later in the year. Our integrated education and training and corrections, we have an interagency contract with Windham School District, and we are working with them. And it's been such a fabulous, I think I saw Kevin actually on the call. It's been such a fabulous partnership. I mean, this was something we sat down, we said we wanted to do this, and Windham's just taken this, and they have just been amazing to work with really focusing on building that IET in the walls, and then us being able to also support individuals post-release through our regular core grant and our providers that are out there across Texas. We have a pre-apprenticeship bridge program as well, focusing on building trades. We awarded 1 grant as a result of that RFA, and I believe it's Brazos Valley Council of Governments that applied for that grant and was awarded. And then last but certainly not least, our Family Math Literacy Initiative. This was to create a call center specifically to help to support parents who were dealing with sort of this, the learning gain issue that was occurring because of COVID, and making sure that we had our second language learners that were out there and could support their children to be able to focus on their studies. So we had 1 grant that we awarded with that, and I believe that was Harris County Department of Ed. So these are all things that have been done, and they are going, and these projects are happening. And I'll circle back and give the advisory committee some updates here probably in the next month or so. Next slide. So that is the TWC AEL update. I know that was a lot, and I tend to talk really, really fast. So if you guys had any questions in the chat, I'll circle back and I'll answer those. But at this time, I wanted to turn things over to our presiding officer, Steve Banta, who's the Executive Director for Literacy Texas, and he is going to kick off our AEL discussion for today. Steve?
Thank you, Mahalia. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, and I can see you. And hey, Rita, I can see you too. Thanks for joining.
Wonderful. I think I should take roll call, first of all, to officially recognize the committee here. Brenda, are you on?
I'm here.
And Rita?
How are you?
Good. Janine?
Hey, everybody.
And Leslie, it's so nice to have you with us. Welcome to the committee, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Same here.
Welcome, Leslie. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Welcome on board.
So with that, I'd like to give a little background before I introduce our guest speaker. The last time we met, we talked about how the pandemic impacts technology and adult and family literacy providers to be able to serve our clients. And in the nonprofit world, a lot of the small nonprofits actually had to shut down. But we discussed urban, rural, how they were impacted, how students had challenges to be able to attend a class. The AEL funded programs, I think, did better than a lot of the nonprofits in terms of using technology to reach the individuals. As Mahalia pointed out, close to 40% are taking advantage of distance learning technology, which I think is just amazing. But this meeting was designed to focus on collaboration. We know that there are very diverse needs in our communities, and each of the adult literacy providers addresses a different need. And as we discussed it, the more that we can collaborate to support each other and do handoffs between organizations, the better off we think we can serve the community and make sure people do not fall through the gaps. So one individual who has done a tremendous amount of work in this regard is John Trischetti, who is the Executive Director of the Literacy Coalition of the Permian Basin. He is going to share with us a study that he did in his area. It's actually a pretty broad area that he works in. But let me give you some background on John first. He served as the director of the Midland County Public Libraries from 2011 to 2019, spearheading the establishment of the Centennial Branch and remodel of the downtown library during his tenure. He is a former Texas Librarian of the Year and is a past recipient of the Rosalind Redfern Library Benefactor Award. Locally, he also served on the City of Midland Airport Board and the Basin PBS Board of Directors, and is currently the District 5 trustee for the Midland Independent School District. John is a TED Talk presenter on the social impacts of illiteracy. He is a frequent speaker and a program presenter across the country on children's literacy and best practices on management and leadership. So with that, John, I turn it over to you for your presentation.
Thanks so much, Steve. Y'all hear me and see me okay?
We can.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna take him around, and he's gonna be my hype man every time I have to speak now. That was quite the introduction. Glad to be with y'all. So much of just listening to what Mahalia was talking about, it really resonates with what we're trying to accomplish. And we feel like the work that we're doing in the Permian Basin and can show you some of the data and research that we have done can really spill over statewide. So is someone controlling the click through, or am I doing that? You can advance to the next slide. That's just us. That's our logo. So just very briefly, our organization is fairly new. We are completely funded through philanthropy and some corporate donation. There was some philanthropic organizations that really wanted to look at workforce development in the Permian Basin, which y'all know is primarily the main driver is oil and gas. And they is a serious workforce deficit in this part of the world. And they kept hearing over and over that literacy was a key factor. And so they had a convening pre-COVID, which is pre-2019, about, what does that look like? What does that actually mean? And so they hosted a kind of a discussion and began planning to establish what would eventually be my organization, the Literacy Coalition of the Permian Basin. And then COVID hit, and they continued to kind of do their work in the background and get ready. And then as they came out of COVID, they really identified that it was time to find a incubator for this nonprofit. And so they approached me and asked me if I would be interested. I had left public libraries at that time, actually, and was working in economic development. And so had some involvement with some of the state things with the Texas Workforce Commission and the like, and the commissioners. And I said, yes, I think my heart is back in literacy. And so came back. And so we've been officially an organization since July 1 of 21. So I've been on the job 18 months. One of the first things, though, that was identified by the board was we needed a comprehensive needs assessment, because while we knew it was a problem, there's really no data for that outside of the K-12 space. And while Steve talked about the connection between kind of urban and rural, and I'm sure many of you in Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio would consider Midland rural. We're actually urban for our area. And once you get outside of Midland, Odessa, it becomes very rural and very sparsely populated very quickly. And so the data was very difficult to come by. And so we commissioned a study, and Steve gives me more credit. He said a study I did. I did very little of the heavy lifting on this. The American Institute of Research, who we actually partnered with through the Barbara Bush National Literacy Organization, had given us their information. They began the work to really get a firm assessment of what the needs are. And so strangely, ironically, perhaps, the needs assessment showed us that the problem was worse than we thought it was, which strangely justified the risks that the foundations took in starting us up. But then we had some hard data to really move forward. You can go to the next slide. And so now we've begun the work. And primarily for us, the coalition, what we hear over and over is there's a lot of concern. People get in their silos and they're worried that we're going to step on their funding. A lot of these are mom and pop, small organizations. Most people don't even know that they're out there. They're just working in their little area. But we see ourselves as a connector and a convener. We want to use this information to engage local civic clubs, social service providers, government, to say, hey, here's the issue and how can we help, and enhance the work that's already being done when we can identify and find these individuals, and also assess what we call literacy deserts. Where are the places where there is no service, and how do we begin to build some capacity in those areas and really collaborate? As Steve said, we are much more of a collaborative organization. And so that's simply for us right there. But the comprehensive needs assessment was really integral to what we're doing. And Steve reached out to me and said he wants to do something similar statewide, which would be expensive, but I think worth doing because the data is really there. You can go to the next slide. So many of y'all are probably familiar with this, the Barbara Bush Foundation for Family Literacy's National Action Plan, which came out last year. And all of that data that we know, about half of Americans read below a 6th grade level, and 1 out of 5 read below a 3rd grade level. I will tell you, for us, our data for our region shows that it's much worse than that. Our data came back that 1/3 of all adults in the Permian Basin read below a 3rd grade level. And we did it so much that we have the 30,000-foot view, but we also drilled down into each county. And some of our counties are as high as 50% low literacy. And so we really can put the resources where we feel like the need is. And everything that's on there, everyone on this call, I'm sure, knows that low literacy is just a force multiplier when it comes to negative impact on people's lives. If you hear nothing else from me today, I would just stress my personal desire, given my background as a librarian, what I've seen and in this organization is that we are driven to make the conversations about literacy it be more than an education issue. Literacy is a social issue. And all the things that communities want to tackle can be accomplished if we start talking about literacy outside of the education space. It's always going to be an education issue because of the K-12, but some of those broader issues, we have to be able to broaden the scope of what we're talking about and address literacy to address those social needs. We know that there is a direct correlation between low literacy and poverty, low literacy and crime, low literacy and food insecurity, and low literacy in workforce development. And we have to be able to change the conversation about that as we continue to move forward in this work. Next slide. So this may be a slide you're familiar with. This is from the most recent PAC data that came out of our study. And this is the slide that I use frequently, both regionally and statewide, because I feel like it gives you the fuller snapshot. This is a heat map for low literacy in the country currently. A lot of the usual suspects are there. Most of the shaded area is in the South. You don't have it in the affluent New England areas. Most of the usual suspects that you would expect, Appalachia, the Mississippi Delta, along the border. What I try to challenge people I speak to in our region and across Texas is that we are uniquely positioned. That outlined black area is my service area, and we'll get to that in a second. But we are uniquely positioned because of the oil and gas in the Permian Basin and Texas is the 10th largest economy in the world across if it was a country, it would be the 10th largest economy in the world. We are uniquely positioned both financially and human capital to actually affect change. In my mind, that's the argument I make. And then I feel that if we have some innovative programs and ideas and collaborate in unique ways and get people out of their silos talking about it, then we have a program that is duplicatable across some of these other areas, especially in the South. Next slide. But as Steve said, our region is very large. Texas is a big too, but for the Permian Basin, as we define it, is 19 West Texas counties and 3 Eastern New Mexico counties. Y'all may not be as interested in New Mexico. This is primarily Texas, but square mileage, my service area is equivalent to the state of Indiana. So we're covering a lot of ground. I would tell you that this map that you see now is about 1 million people, according to the last census. But 300,000 of that is in Midland and Ector County. And so a bulk of the population, a third of it is centered right there in that blue shaded area. We know that we broke this down in this way because we know the needs in Ozona, which is down in the Trans-Pecos, are very different than what the needs are in Roswell in southeastern New Mexico. And so we want to be able to really be pointed in how we are geographically serving, because there's diversity in a number of ways that we have to address across the state of Texas. And my service area is just a microcosm of what everyone is dealing with across the state, I would argue. Similar socioeconomic demographics, Hispanic population, free and reduced lunch in the schools, all those things. We are dealing with that, and you can just zoom out, and essentially it is what it is across the entirety of the state. Next slide. And so some of the data that we have specifically for our study, and I will just stop here to say, I would encourage you to go to our website, literacypb.org. The entire 52-page needs assessment is online there. There's a lot of data. The Barbara Bush National Action Plan is available on our website. And we actually, as a part of this study, have a full economic impact report from Dr. Ray Perryman, who's a noted economist that some of y'all may be familiar with. He did and really drew the line, connected the dots between low literacy and economic impact for communities. And it's staggering. There's already, in our area alone, a 10,000 people shortfall for workforce, and expands that to approximately 45,000 by the time it's 2050. And we know that the state is continuing to grow, and those needs are only going to continue to grow. For our area alone, there's 157,000 people that are level 1 or below across our 22 county region, which is the size of Midland. I mean, that's an entire city. But you can see kind of, we broke that down by the counties that we serve, the percentage of low skilled population versus the actual hard number. Just anecdotally, your trivia question for the day, Loving County, which is one of our counties, is at the very bottom of that. That is the least populated county in the entire country. There are more people on this Zoom than are in Loving County. And so a couple of people really shift those numbers, but it's in our service area, and so we included it. Next slide. So I talked about how we broke it down even by the county profile. So when I go into a county and I'm talking to a county judge or a mayor and say, hey, you have a literacy problem in this community, and they go, well, how do you know? I can say, this is how I know. We have broken it down specifically to your county. What's discouraging is that we know Texas and New Mexico are both in the bottom 10 in literacy rates in our country. And for our service area, 20 of the 22 are below the state average. So the bar was already low, and we're even below that. And so there's plenty of work to be done. We are partnering a lot with workforce. The energy companies are very interested. We'll just use CDL for an example. There is a massive shortage for big rig drivers in our part of the world because they're driving frac sand trucks and water trucks. And y'all may be aware that a few years ago, the state changed the CDL exam, and it's more rigorous. And so these guys that have been driving trucks for 20 years have the physical skill to drive the truck, but they can't pass the written portion of the exam anymore because they don't have the literacy skills. And so we have people coming to us with very specific need. They're trying to accomplish something. Yes, you have the people that just come in and want to, you know, it's a comprehensive issue. They want to learn English, but we have people coming in specifically for, I've got to pass the CDL so I can keep my job. And that really hits home and becomes very meaningful for that individual on an immediate level, so we get them connected with who they need connected to so they can have those skills. And that's just one example. We also, earlier in the program, someone was talking about their connection with the criminal justice. One of our programs that we saw a need to fill, because again, we're not interested in working people out of their jobs. We want to identify them and then point people their way when they have a need. But one of the places we saw a real need was with the criminal courts. The data tells us that about 85% of Texans that are come into contact with the criminal court system are low literate. And so we have a pilot program in Midland County where we've partnered with the drug court and the teen court, and it's called Turn the Page. So it's got that literary piece, but it's also turning the page in these individuals' lives where the judge orders them to take a literacy assessment. And we provide that and then provide that data back to the judge so they can better map out a plan for that individual that they will stay on while they're in that program and reduce recidivism. And so we're hopeful that in a year or two, when we have that data, we really are going to show that that has moved the needle and being able to provide that and give the judges a better sense of where they are truly and saying, hey, you need to get your GED, you need to get your ESL, you need to get citizenship, let's get you a CDL, let's get you a welding certificate, whatever those certifications may be that fit your life while you're going through this program. Let's help you get there and attain that and make sure you have the literacy skills necessary to do so. And so that's one program that we're actively engaged in, trying to fill a need where we felt like there really wasn't one across our service area. We additionally, I saw y'all were handing out a lot of dollars, and that's phenomenal. That is super impactful. We heard over and over again that the need for resources is pretty serious. Most of these places either have only one paid employee or it's volunteer kind of mom and pop local shop. And they're intimidated to go apply to a state grant or one of the large local philanthropic foundations that we may have in our area. And so we raised money and my board approved for us to do micro grants. And so we're doing our first round of up to $5,000 micro grants for these literacy providers, these literacy organizations, to give them an immediate shot in the arm and make it very streamlined. It's a one-page Google Doc. As long as it has a literacy tie, our board is considering it. and really wanted to kind of remove as many of the obstructions and hurdles as we could for these organizations so they could continue to do the work. And some of these asks are very simple. They're asking for additional software, or maybe they don't have a computer and they're partnering with the library, which is great, but they need an additional computer so people have time to work on it when the library isn't open. I know the library tries to be as accommodating as they can, but sometimes, you know, Thursday at 3 o'clock, I mean, these people are working and have lives and jobs. And so to provide that flexibility, they're getting additional resources. They're paying for tutors because volunteer tutors are not dependable enough, and it just harms the students. So we've seen a lot of really creative grants come through our way, and we're excited about launching that initiative for our area. And that's just kind of two of the things. But the needs assessment really has provided us a roadmap of how we need to go about and tackle and accomplish some of this work. It's really our North Star when it comes to, you know, the adult literacy pipeline, the economic impact analysis, the workforce development piece. Now it's all there and we have something tangible, and it's not anecdotal. It's not, well, I heard that. We have the resources to really justify the work that we're doing. Next slide. If I have another slide, I don't even remember. Oh yeah. So we are a coalition. You know, if you were in the area or you have any interest, would love for you. Philanthropy's funding it for the first year. It's very affordable in the second year. And we only want to provide a value add for our membership, but that's just some of the things that we're doing. We do have a quarterly convening that we try to do some additional continuing education, professional development. This most recent one was about grant writing and funding. It's an intimidating thing for a lot of people if you're not comfortable with that. We have an annual literacy summit that Literacy Texas participated in, and it was really great to kind of convene all those people and create a networking opportunity for people that didn't know each other existed and never have the opportunity to really get together and bring in K-12, junior colleges, nonprofit. I mean, everybody that has a piece of that brought all those people together. And so we're going to make that an annual event because we got really good feedback about that. There's lots of summits, there's lots of conferences. You know, Literacy Texas has an annual conference, but there's not very many things, at least in our part of the world or across the state, I would argue, that are literacy specific focused. A lot of education stuff and Texas Library Association and those types of things. So we heard a lot of great feedback on that and hope to continue to do that. And I covered a lot of ground really quickly, but I wanted to make sure that we were on time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or have much more of a conversation than just me lecturing.
John, thank you so much for that.
Sure.
I hope everybody can see while I was so excited to have you participate and share what you're doing there. It is the definition of collaboration and looking at the big picture and seeing where the gaps are and how people can work together to help fill those gaps. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
So now for the committee discussion. What are the topic one, benefits of collaboration between adult and family literacy organizations? And the second part of this is, are there policies that we've identified that could enhance collaboration between adult and family literacy organizations? As a committee, we talked through this, and each of us appears to be addressing this in a different way. But one thing that we agreed upon was that collaboration is very important for us to be able to meet our missions. So Janine, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to start with you because Tarrant County has done quite a bit of work between the AEL funded programs and the nonprofit world to make sure that people don't fall through the gaps. Would you mind going first, please?
Sure. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the opportunity. So one of the things in Tarrant County that we identified early on was there's a huge need, just like anywhere else across the state. And of course, our funding can only reach a certain number of individual needs. And then those needs just tend to keep getting bigger and bigger as things happen and life happens. So in order for us to meet that head on, we knew that we needed to bring as many people to the table as possible. And we all needed to bring our resources to the table. Each of us brings unique resources for the participants and for their success. And so what we did is on our consortium, we have a variety of entities, and we have a direct, part of that is we have a direct connection with our Tarrant Literacy Coalition. And through the Tarrant Literacy Coalition, we've been able to be connected with many of our faith-based or community-based organizations that are not funded through, through the state. And we learned that we have some resources or wraparound services that we can provide that are not available out there to those community partners. We know for sure that the resource sharing is a huge benefit. We found that working with some of our community partners, they were able to provide some childcare on site, so we could provide those classes or those services on site and handle that barrier that arises, with childcare. That was a huge one. And then also, just making sure that everyone knew that we do have that common goal. We have the participant success in mind. And so again, we're not there to compete with each other. We're there to augment each other. And so we wanted to show that we can meet the participant where they are, or meet the student where they are. So each student has different needs. We had individuals that were extremely low literacy level, really needed that one-on-one kind of volunteer tutoring type situation that we couldn't provide under the grant. However, our partners were able to do that and help those students to get where they need to be in order to be prepared for a regular classroom setting. That was a huge win for us, through those partnerships. And then we needed to also we wanted to show our partners how we could augment the system. So we can provide that pipeline for that forward trajectory or that movement for that student, provide their next steps to get them into, ultimately gainful employment, and set them up for financial sustainability. And so we can provide some trainings like Mahalia was talking about, the integrated education and training. We were able to provide some trainings for the individuals when they reach, that goal, and move them along the pipeline. So we've been very fortunate. Everyone has worked really well together here in Tarrant to do what we can to provide the best experience for the student. And so there's tons of benefits, and I don't want to take up all the time, but in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're doing. We're looking at ways to bring in a comprehensive model that can, pick the student up wherever they come into the program and move them along in forward movement.
Great, thank you, Janine. Mm-hmm. Rita, would you like to go next?
Actually, I really enjoyed listening to what the librarian, he's an outstanding librarian, and that's all I'm going to remember him by as an introduction, because I have such a respect for librarians. The moment he said he was a former librarian of the year, I started paying attention and organizing over here like I had overdue books. But the thing that caught me with him is, and with this project, and I think we need to do more, is that literacy ability for those touched by the legal system. So I went on a whim this time, and I picked up one in the legal system with a female in a category I don't usually take them in it, and it bit me. It didn't work. And I just got to figure out how to do better by that. And in South Texas, it's just something I need to focus on, because there's a lot of projects for men, but not for women. And I kind of want to go back to him on another level and see what are we doing for the women that have been touched by the system, legal system. But
thank you. Brenda, would you like to go next?
Sure. Can you see me? I can't see myself, but that's okay. I'm not sure my camera's working. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, okay, that's fine. As long as y'all can see me, I just can't see myself. So, well, in Southeast Texas, collaboration has always been the key to our program's success. And so we're always making efforts to nurture that collaboration and expand our partnerships. In our AEL classes, we have face-to-face and virtual options, first of all, in addition to distance learning and different things that we can provide to our students. And basically, due to our collaboration, that's just, like I said, it's just a huge key to our program's success. And as a result of that, I don't mean to brag on this, but I'm bragging on our partners and the topic of today's session, that we've already met 73% of our total enrollments for the year in the first quarter this year. And again, largely due to our collaboration with our partners and other organizations. That includes libraries, colleges, training providers, the housing authority, just on and on. So we're so thankful for those partnerships. They've also helped us already this year to meet and surpass our IET and our intensive targets. Of course, we definitely want to continue to grow and continue to add participants to our classes and really serve a lot of students this year. But again, it's due to that collaboration. We have a very close working relationship with our workforce board and our workforce solution centers. We have classes in three workforce solution centers. And we've partnered with them since 2014. And we're also working with them to provide work-based learning and paid work experience to our participants for a better customer experience for them. That collaboration really increases employment options for our students. The case managers are assisting us with tracking and follow-up. We do have a workforce career and education outreach specialist who's just wonderful and works with us so well on that. And we're reaching out to employers to start some workplace literacy classes. We have a number of different classes, but that's one thing that we don't have. We don't have any workplace literacy classes. So the workforce board staff will be assisting us in those collaboration efforts. We'll reach out to the employers, but they already have that close collaboration with those employers. So we're looking forward to their assistance in helping us with that. Of course, we have our Center for Internationally Trained Professionals. That's on the campus of Lamar State College, Port Arthur. But that is one of our programs. And so we receive referrals for internationally trained professionals who need ESL before they enter training or the workforce. And of course they can just show up and let us know whatever they do need, and we'll assist them. And that often is to help them ourselves, but also to make referrals there. One new partnership that we have is through Lamar State College, Port Arthur as well. And it's the Excelencia Center. It's a program that receives Title V funding, especially for Spanish-speaking, low-income the population. And their primary purpose is to be an on-ramp to college for these students and to serve incoming college students. They encourage family involvement. Many or most are first-generation college students. And so they're sending a lot of students and parents who need higher education, higher English skills, TSI assistance they're sending a lot of those people to us. So we're getting a lot of referrals from them and from their counselors. So their goal specifically is to increase the college completion rates, particularly for those who need those higher English skills, and specifically for Spanish-speaking low income. So that's just been a real boost to us, and it's just an exciting outreach that we have, and an exciting partnership because they're just doing so much good, and of course that's what we're here for. So basically, another thing that we have just been that's been really helpful to us is, of course, not only that we have so many partnerships. Like I said, I really don't know where we would be without all of our great partners, because that's as I said, that's just been a key to our program's success. But we've also many of our existing partners we've been working with for quite some time now. We help them in any way that we can. And of course, they help us in whatever way that they can, and whatever we need. Recently with one of our CDL programs, we were not able to, basically there was an option for the students of whether or not they wanted to join our classes, or whether they took the baseline assessment and that kind of thing. It was not our option, but the college offered them the option, particularly if they were paying their own tuition. But then recently, first of all, the workforce development director knew that was an issue, and he knew that so many of these students were needing our services and just not taking advantage of it. So he really worked with us and worked with the students and worked with their policy. So starting in November, they have made arrangements for everyone who qualifies for our program, for everyone basically to take our assessment, to be a part of the intake. And obviously they can still choose, but we really feel, and they really feel, that that's going to be a huge, huge benefit to so many of those students who are struggling. And so we're looking forward to serving many more students in that regard. But we've also had our partners who have been with us and been so focused on the student success for so long, who have helped us make other partnerships. Recently, one of our workforce development vice presidents, who we've worked with for many years, and I were talking, and I said, I'm having a little trouble making this connection with this particular partner, and it was a college partner. And so I'm just, it's not that they don't need our services. I'm sure they do, but we keep hitting a brick wall as to who can we get in touch with for the so that we can have the most success. And within 10 minutes, he said he sent an email to about 5 different people telling them how wonderful we were, and how well he has worked with us, and how happy he's been with our services, and let's get together and set up a meeting. And it was just something that I couldn't do on my own, that we were struggling to do on our own, that one of our partners just stepped in, and it's just becoming a really robust partnership with this new group. So anyway, there are it's just been very beneficial to us to have that collaboration. So that's a small bit of what we're doing in that regard.
Brenda, thank you so much for that. The other part of this that we're talking about, that we had quite a bit of discussion the last time we got together, was about how policies, the TWC policies, could be looked at, and where we find that they are given an incentive not to collaborate because you have very specific goals and objectives, and you have things that you have to meet per the requirements of the funding. And if collaboration makes that difficult to meet those goals and objectives, then is there a way that we can maybe look at them differently or provide different incentives? Would any of you like to speak up on this aspect of what you're doing?
You know, actually, I have, Steve, I have a question. So Steve, I have an SSF grant. And I don't know if the rest of you have gotten them. And the hardest part of the SSF for me is you know, under 37,000 with a dependent, living or not living with you, right? I get a lot of under 37 living at home with mom and dad, and they don't qualify for any of these trainings. So that's kind of complicated. The other one, I think that makes it difficult, of course, was the SSF. God, there was one more and I lost it. And it had to do with collaboration with the grants. I have to get back to you, but the first one off the top of my head is, you know, I'll have a bunch of people under 37,000 living at home with mom and dad, but don't have a dependent. So that kind of throws them out of that training category. I don't know, and there is no other way around it. I mean, it's just the way the rules are on that one.
Is it logical that they would not qualify? It doesn't sound logical. I mean, how would somebody address that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a policy. That's somebody's policy. And it may not be TWC, it might be the federal government. I mean, I don't know. But if you're 37,000 and it's a self-sufficiency program and you're living at home, well, you're really not self-sufficient, right? So to me, they would qualify. But of course, you know, because we would want to help them before they had the kids, right? I mean, no sense in going to have the kid and then coming back to us, right? But that's just, I don't know if anyone else has run into that one. And I'm running into it right now. But I'm going to have to, believe it or not, Wells Fargo in my community, love them. They are bringing a bunch of, the donor laws have changed. And so Wells Fargo picks some of their wealthiest clients in South Texas, trying to get them to dispose of some of their money to take advantage of the new laws. And I'm going to have about 10 of those come over in 5 minutes. So I'm going to have to bail. But if your Wells Fargo isn't doing it for you, you got to call our guys because that's what they're doing for us. And I don't even bank there. I didn't want to tell them, but they're coming to see the school. I thank you all for your time and your commitment in helping families thrive in our great state. It's funny how we talk about how difficult it is, but yet everyone's coming to Texas and we're the largest economy, bigger than most countries. But that's what it takes to be great, be on top and still find ways to get better. So I'm most grateful to you guys. And I wish that someday you'd come see what we're doing with zero debt training. But I gotta go, I'm sorry.
Hey Rita, before you head off, I'll look into the self-sufficiency fund for the eligibility and let you know what I find out. Yeah. I actually am not sure if that is a state requirement or if there's something, something else maybe in statute or related, but yeah.
I don't want to be ungrateful because I am most grateful. I mean, when you do what we do, we charge, nobody pays to be here. And we have 100% pass rate and placement rate since we reopened post-COVID. So I'm very grateful. But again, we're always trying to figure out how to do it better, right? So anyway, I'm lucky to be in Texas. So I got to go though. Wells Fargo is going to be here and I'm going to go light some candles and see if I can get some rain.
All right. Thanks, Rita.
All right. You bet. Y'all have a good day. Bye.
Johnine, do you have any examples that you can share where policy revisions might help expand capacity or get the job done, meet people where they are?
Yeah, so I wanted to just, I want to touch on a topic I think we discussed a little bit the other day, but I think one of the big things is the data sharing or the data, if we could do something with data collection or reporting so that it goes across agencies or across organizations. That might help. A lot of the times, you know, when we're collaborating with some of our other organizations, they're wanting to know, you know, the data and where we're getting it from and what it looks like. And I think, you know, us being able to open that up, you know, would help so that the determination can be made, you know, for the need of services or what types of services. And it also helps all organizations to be able to report out, you know, on their work and whether it's working or not. That's always a big one. And I'll tell you, coming from the board, in our co-enrollment model, we really have worked hard over the last few years to provide like a seamless referral process for our co-enrollment. And that allows us to give our students into Title I funding as well as Title II. And we can get some of those wraparound services. And the big thing that we, you know, we've been able to tap into is getting that support service for our students, like maybe they need rental assistance, especially with the pandemic and everything that's going on, or maybe they, you know, needed some help with their car repairs or things. So, am I breaking up? I'm sorry. I think it would be really good if we could get a system so that we could report across programs and organizations data. I think that's a big one. That's one we're trying to get a hold on. And I'm sorry, I'm breaking out.
Thank you, Johnny. I'm not sure what happened to your voice.
Yeah, you were fine in the beginning, and then when you came back on, it was like super garbled.
My computer's acting crazy right now. I can't see you guys, so.
Well, that's good. And we were talking before we came on here about data sharing, and maybe that's something Mahalia can advise us on. What's legal to share, what isn't legal to share, how can we do that and still protect the confidentiality that we have with students. Do you share were you talking about sharing with AEL funded and non-AEL funded as well?
Yeah, we don't have a problem with the funded partners. It's when we're dealing with our organizations out in the community that are non-funded. And they're always asking us, where are we getting that from and how can they get access to that? So
one of the biggest frustrations I've had since I've been on the job at Literacy Texas is the inability of the nonprofit adult and family literacy community to gather data on a consistent basis that be compared with and shared with funders so that they can see and track the benefits of the adult literacy programs. And that remains a goal of mine, to find the technology that can maintain confidentiality, still allow that data to be shared. That's a huge challenge.
And Steve, I mean, to that point, and one of the things that John, and he brought this up in his presentation as well, which goes back to really grant funding, right? So a lot of the smaller organizations, it's a heavy lift to try to apply for funds, especially federal dollars. There's a lot of compliance in there, especially for our adult education dollars, specifically in statute. You know, any organization that's going to apply for that type of funding has to have something called demonstrated effectiveness. And the way that the state and how we are required to look at applicants who want funding is there's a lot of data points that those applicants have to bring forward for us to even consider them for funding. And so to that kind of point, Steve, that you made about when you have a lot of nonprofit faith-based organizations out there kind of doing this good work and doing these things, but if there's no collective, if there's not the funding available for data systems, and this is maybe something for John too to consider in terms of the work that they're doing out there. but there's no data system. So when you have these grants that hit the street and you want to apply for them, but you don't have the data to support essentially the claims that you're making as an applicant in those grants, that's a big impasse for many of the organizations that would want to apply for funding. So it's a good topic and something to consider on how do we really tackle that. So that we do have a true competitive, to our grants here in Texas, not just the organizations that, have been with us forever, even though we love them and some of them are on here, but they have access to a data source that many other organizations just may not simply be able to collect. And it would cause some limitation there, which is unfortunate. So it's a very good point.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it, Talia. And that's the challenge that we think we have a technology solution for. And we want to do a trial. We need to get some funding from a grant to do that. But it allows the smaller nonprofits to gather data and be hooked up to a larger system, and a central warehouse kind of entity would gather that data and make sense out of it. So.
Yeah.
But
now, I do think that one thing maybe we could do at the state level is to create some information and put information out there in terms of what does the statute require, and that may help to support if there are entities out there like Steve, if you're working on this, this data or this warehouse that nonprofits can come and put their data in. I'd be happy to do information sessions to kind of say, this is really the types of data that you would need to collect in order to, be responsive to applications in the future. So I think that'd be a good way for us to share information and collaborate so that, it really is a transparency out there for people that are looking for funds.
That would be wonderful. We can talk more about that.
Sure.
Brenda, did you have anything you wanted to share on the policy side that TITA might be able to look at to enhance collaboration?
This is this ties into collaboration, but just something that we've encountered locally that is a concern for us, or just something that we would like to see, that if the policy could possibly be changed to allow customers and AEL participants the freedom to where they would like to choose, the freedom to choose basically where they would like to attend class. I'm not saying to totally revamp everything, that maybe what it sounds like, but regardless of the service area where they reside. And the rationale behind that is that we get lots of calls from potential partners from other service areas who have students that they would like to refer to our classes, but because we are limited at this point by our service area, they can't do that. For example, we have potential students who live less than 5 miles from our adult education and literacy classes, but their actual nearest AEL class within their provider area is 60 miles away. So, they can't drive 60 miles, but they also, are not supposed to drive the 5 miles to cross that line to come to our classes. And even though we do have face-to-face and virtual classes, and of course, distance learning. So we've just had to turn down a lot of potential partners, and we always encourage them to talk with the local provider. There have been instances where they just, for whatever reason, they have been unable to make that to partner with someone in their local area. And so that's just something that we see that, maybe, I don't know, maybe a possibility would be if you don't have an adult education access to an adult education program within 10 or 15 miles of a class in your service area, would there maybe be would there be a possibility that we could work something out even between providers so that those people could maybe go to the nearest AEL class? And I know that, I've heard that there is a possibility that in the future, the AEL programs can apply for specific counties instead of the workforce, entire workforce forward areas. And certainly that, if that comes to pass, that would be very helpful as well. And I know that there is, the upcoming new program that there will be some virtual classes available throughout Texas, regardless of where people live. But I guess, of course, everybody wants the participants to come to them, but just maybe a little bit more freedom for the participants to choose what works best for them, rather than necessarily being tied to a particular service area. So that's kind of what we've run across that would be helpful for us with potential partners and for our students.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So Brenda, and for the other members of the committee, several years ago, we started making enhancements to our data system. We were talking about data systems earlier. So a couple of years ago, we started making enhancements to our data system so that the AEL provider system as a whole, there was transparency with the students, right? So if a student moved from Houston to Dallas, those providers would be able to see the continuity of services that student had in the system. And that wasn't something that was there before. It was kind of, you were a little blind if you were a service provider in terms of the holistic and kind of comprehensive, services that the student had received. So we made that enhancement in the system, in the data system, a couple of years ago. So now it's really with potentially the next RFA gives us an opportunity to be responsive to, I think, Brenda's concern and some of those things, which is at a state level. So I appreciate her bringing that up. We had a couple of, and it really makes sense. If you have a student in Abilene that really wants to be a part of, let's just say, a type of workforce training that may not be offered in that area because their intention is to move to Houston, right? And they want to participate in something that is available in some other area. We don't want to hold those students back. We want to support the Texas workforce and the system here as a whole. So that's definitely that's a great topic and recommendation.
Thanks. Looking forward to seeing what's in the new RFA.
Mahalia and Brenda, thank you very much. John, John Treschetti, I can't tell if you're still on or not. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you've been doing this for a while now, and I wondered if you have any observations you want to share on collaboration between AEL funded and non-funded organizations.
I do not see him on.
Yeah, okay.
He may have jumped off.
Very good. With that, Mahalia, I think we've covered our agenda.
Awesome. Well, I'll give, I know, Leslie, this is your very first show here at the rodeo, but so far, since we're getting close to the end of our agenda, any comments or feedback or anything you'd like to contribute? And you might be on mute, Leslie. No, we may have lost her.
Mahalia, I assume you're going to be sharing all of our contact information, so the committee can reach out to her.
Yes.
Wonderful.
I will be doing that. And Leslie, I don't know if you are out there. I see that you're on, but we've been having some technical issues today. So, Jennifer, can you go to the next slide really quickly here? So I wanted to bring up to the committee members as well as others, kind of what some of the next steps are for our committee. So each year we have an annual report that's due. We'd like to bring it forward no later than January. And it's really the intent of the advisory committee, you know, to advise the commission, right? Make recommendations to the commission on some of the things that we've been discussing over the course of the last year. So that report, you know, we'll bring it forward in January, but I think in terms of thinking towards the next advisory committee date, which I think we have tentatively scheduled for December 7th, be thinking about what is going to be that next topic that you may want to discuss, and then also what are going to be these recommendations that you'll be bringing forward to the commission. So Steve, you know, we'll schedule some meetings, and for the rest of the members, we'll kind of schedule just some work group type meetings to get some ideas out there and have informal discussions, trying to build out the agenda for the next meeting in December. But kind of be thinking about what we're really charged with and what you guys specifically are really charged with, which is bringing forward those recommendations to the commission. So, and I think that is all I had. I wanted to thank all of the advisory committee members and Steve and our guest today. I loved everything that John had to say. I was just, you know, I had my camera off, but I was just shaking my head and I was like, yeah, these are all the things that I've been talking about for several years now. So it's kind of, we all know that these things are out there, and this is kind of the state of things. What do we do, right? It's about solutions. And so the advisory committee, you know, that's really what we're looking for. What are some of the solutions that we can come, you know, we can bring forward that are going to help us to really move the needle on some of this need that we have here in Texas. So the need is great. The funding is finite, right, in many instances, which is why we had today's discussion and really talking about collaboration, because it's really about, we have to leverage every dollar that we have in Texas, whether it's a federally funded, state funded, privately funded, employer funded, there's money out there, but we have to leverage every dollar to address the needs that we have here in Texas. One thing I will say that John brought up, and this is maybe something for the committee members to also think about, is really the funding. And the funding that we have right now is a needs-based formula. So those funds really look at the population as meaning the numbers of individuals in certain areas. Those funds, you know, of course, in your large urban areas, they're going to draw a lot of that funding. But we have real need here in Texas in our smaller rural areas that have very high percentages of individuals who are illiterate or lack a high school diploma. So we have to kind of consider that as a whole when we're really thinking about comprehensively how we begin to tackle the problem of illiteracy here in Texas. So anyway, there's always work to do. And lots of work to do. So it's a big job to do. I'm glad you guys are here and talking about this, and I get to share some time and space with you to continue the good work. So we will get this on the schedule for, it says December 5th on here. It's actually the 7th, I believe. So we'll get that corrected before we get this posted publicly and get the meeting invites out to our members. And I don't know if Leslie was able to come back on or not, but I feel bad. I think she was trying to get back in. Let me give her just a second.
One more thing, Mahalia.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday.
I'm 35 and holding, and I have been for 10 years. That's the way that works.
Well, you don't look a day over 21, so you're doing good.
Oh,
That's true.
I wish that were true. Leslie, we tried to give you some space and time, but I don't know. I think we're just having some issues. Leslie, can you hear us? All right, well, technical issues rule the day, I suppose, for today's meeting. Something else to just consider, advisory committee members, we can meet in person, and we're happy to do that as well, and can broadcast this out if we have an in-person meeting. So something to consider. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Steve, any closing remarks from you or other committee members?
I just want to thank the committee for their work on this and all the good work that's getting done.
Anybody else? Final thoughts?
Thank you, Steve, for your great leadership and leading us on this mission. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Doing a great job, Steve. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time. We're signing off and closing the meeting. Bye-bye.